The grand ballroom shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off the polished marble floors. The air was thick with the hum of laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft melodies of a string quartet. Alex Carter stood at the center of it all, his tailored suit fitting perfectly, his smile practiced but distant. To the world, he was the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire with a meteoric rise in the tech industry. But tonight, something felt off. As he sipped his champagne, his eyes wandered toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bustling city streets below. That's when he saw her, a woman, hunched over slightly, clutching a basket of flowers. Her face was partially hidden beneath a worn hood, but there was something about the way she moved, hesitant yet determined, that made Alex's breath catch. He stepped closer to the window, his heart pounding as memories he had buried years ago began to surface. Emma. It couldn't be. Could it? The last time he had seen her, they were just kids, two dreamers sitting on the cracked steps of an old apartment building, sharing a single candy bar and talking about the future. She had been his first love, his confidant, his hope. But life had torn them apart. He had been adopted by a wealthy family, leaving Emma behind in the crumbling neighborhood they once called home. And now, there she was, standing on the cold sidewalk, selling flowers to strangers. Alex's mind raced. Should he go to her? What would he even say? 15 years had passed, and yet in that moment it felt like no time at all. He set his glass down on a nearby table and made his way toward the exit, ignoring the curious glances from the other guests. The night air was crisp, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the ballroom. Alex approached her slowly, his footsteps echoing on the pavement. Emma didn't notice him at first. She was too focused on arranging the flowers in her basket, her hands trembling slightly from the cold. "Excuse me," Alex said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma looked up, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Her eyes, those same warm hazel eyes he remembered, widened in recognition. But there was no joy in her expression, only a flicker of surprise followed by something deeper. Shame? Regret? Alex couldn't tell. "Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Is that really you?" He nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Yeah, Emma, it's me." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the city faded into the background as they stood there, two souls reunited after years of separation. Alex noticed the lines on her face, the weariness in her posture, and the way her hands clutched the basket like a lifeline. Life had been hard on her, and the realization hit him like a punch to the gut. I didn't think I'd ever see you again," Emma said finally, her voice breaking. Alex reached out, hesitating for a moment before gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't either, but I'm glad I did." As they stood there, the weight of their shared past and the stark contrast of their present hung heavy in the air. Alex knew he couldn't just walk away. Not again. But how could he help her without making her feel like a charity case? How could he bridge the gap between the life he now lived and the one they had once dreamed of together? The answers wouldn't come easy, but one thing was certain. This unexpected encounter was about to change both of their lives forever. The rain had been relentless that day, pounding against the cracked windows of the old apartment building. Alex, just 10 years old at the time, sat on the steps of the building's entrance, his knees pulled up to his chest. He was soaked to the bone, but he didn't care. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one raging inside him. "Hey!" a soft voice called out. Alex looked up to see Emma standing there, her hair plastered to her face, her clothes dripping wet. She held out a slightly squished candy bar, her smile warm despite the cold. "I saved this for you." Alex hesitated before taking it. "Thanks," he muttered, breaking the bar in half and handing one piece back to her. They sat in silence for a while, the sound of the rain filling the space between them. "Do you think it'll ever stop?" Alex asked finally, his voice barely audible over the storm. Emma shrugged, her eyes fixed on the puddles forming on the sidewalk. "I don't know. But even if it doesn't, we'll figure it out. Together." Those words had meant everything to him back then. Emma had always been his anchor, the one person who made the world feel less overwhelming. They had grown up in the same neighborhood, two kids from broken homes who found solace in each other's company. While other children played carefree games, Alex and Emma dreamed of a future far away from the poverty and neglect that surrounded them. "When I grow up, I'm going to buy a big house," Emma had said one day, her eyes sparkling with determination. "And it's going to have a garden full of flowers. Not like the ones here that always die. Real beautiful flowers," Alex had laughed. "And I'm going to invent something amazing, something that changes the world." They had made a pact that day, a promise to never give up on their dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. But life had other plans. The memory of the day he left still haunted him. Alex had been packing his few belongings into a suitcase when Emma burst into his room, her face pale and tear-streaked. "You're really leaving?" she had asked, her voice trembling. Alex had nodded, unable to meet her gaze. "My mom, she can't take care of me anymore. This family, they said they'd give me a better life." Emma had grabbed his hand, her grip tight. "But what about our promise? What about the big house and the garden and everything?" He had looked at her then, his heart breaking at the pain in her eyes. "I'll come back for you," he had said, though even then he wasn't sure if it was a promise he could keep. "I'll find you, no matter where I go." But he hadn't. Life in his new home had been a whirlwind of adjustments. New schools, new rules, new expectations. The letters he had tried to send to Emma were returned unopened, and eventually he had stopped trying. Over time, the memories of her had faded, buried beneath the weight of his new reality. Now standing on the sidewalk with Emma in front of him, those memories came rushing back with startling clarity. He could see the little girl she had been, the one who had shared her candy bars and her dreams with him, beneath the weariness of the woman she had become. "Do you remember that time we tried to build a treehouse?" Emma asked suddenly, her voice pulling him out of his thoughts. Alex chuckled, the sound tinged with nostalgia. "Yeah." "It collapsed after, 10 minutes?" Emma smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her face. "We were so sure it was going to be the best treehouse ever, even though we didn't have any nails or wood that wasn't rotten." "We were kids," Alex said softly. "We didn't know any better." Emma's smile faded and she looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I wish I could go back, to a time when everything felt possible." Alex felt a lump form in his throat. He wanted to tell her that it still was possible, that they could still chase those dreams they had once shared, but the words felt hollow, inadequate in the face of everything she had been through. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to her. "Call me," he said. "Let's talk about everything." Emma took the card, her fingers brushing against his for the briefest of moments. She nodded, though her eyes were filled with uncertainty. "Okay." As Alex walked away, the weight of their shared past pressed heavily on his shoulders. He knew this was just the beginning, of what, he wasn't sure. But one thing was certain: the little girl who had once been his everything was still there, buried beneath the hardships of life, and he was determined to help her find her way back. The drive back to his penthouse was a blur. Alex barely registered the city lights streaming past his car window, his mind too preoccupied with the encounter that had just unfolded. Emma's face, her tired eyes, her hesitant smile, played on a loop in his mind, each detail sharpening his guilt and resolve. When he finally stepped into his apartment, the silence felt oppressive. The sleek, modern decor that had once symbolized his success now seemed cold and impersonal. He poured himself a glass of water and sank into the couch, staring at the blank TV screen as if it might offer some clarity. How could he help her? The question gnawed at him. He could write her a check, of course, enough to cover her expenses for years. But something about that felt wrong. Emma wasn't just someone in need. She was the girl who had once been his everything. She deserved more than a handout. She deserved a chance to rebuild her life on her own terms. Alex leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His thoughts drifted back to the day he had left the neighborhood. He had been so young, so naive, convinced that his new life would be the answer to all his problems. And in many ways, it had been. He had been given opportunities he never would have had otherwise: education, stability, a future. But at what cost? He had left behind the one person who had truly understood him, who had believed in him when no one else did. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. The guilt was overwhelming, but beneath it was something else, a sense of responsibility. He had been given so much, and yet, what had he done to give back? Sure, he had donated to charities here and there, but it had always felt impersonal, like he was checking a box rather than making a real difference. Emma's face flashed in his mind again, and this time he saw not just the woman she was now, but the girl she had been. The one who had dreamed of a garden full of flowers, who had believed in a better future, even when the present was bleak. She had inspired him once, and now she was inspiring him again. By the time the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains, Alex had made up his mind. He wouldn't just give Emma money, he would give her a chance to reclaim her dreams. He would pay for her education, help her find a stable job, and ensure that she and her daughter had a safe place to live. But more than that, he would show her that she wasn't alone, that someone still believed in her, just as she had once believed in him. The next morning, Alex called his assistant and instructed her to clear his schedule for the day. Then, he dialed the number on the business card he had given Emma. It rang 3 times before she answered, her voice hesitant. "Hello? Emma, it's Alex," he said, trying to keep his tone calm despite the nerves churning in his stomach. "I was wondering if we could meet. There's something I'd like to discuss with you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment Alex worried she might refuse, but then she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "Okay. When? How about today? I can come to you, wherever you're comfortable." Another pause, followed by a quiet, "There's a park near where I live. We could meet there." "Perfect," Alex said, relief flooding through him. "I'll see you soon." As he hung up the phone, Alex felt a strange mix of anxiety and determination. This was it. The moment he could finally make things right, not just for Emma, but for himself. He grabbed his coat and headed for the door, his mind racing with plans and possibilities. The park was small and unassuming, with a few scattered benches and a playground in the distance. Alex spotted Emma sitting on one of the benches, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked up as he approached, her expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Hi," Alex said, sitting down beside her. "Thanks for meeting me." Emma nodded, her eyes searching his face. "What did you want to talk about?" Alex took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said yesterday, about how you wish you could go back to a time when everything felt possible, and I realized maybe you still can." Emma frowned, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" "I want to help you," Alex said, his voice firm but gentle. "Not just with money, but with a real chance to start over. I'll pay for your education, help you find a job, whatever you need. You don't have to do this alone anymore." For a long moment, Emma said nothing. She just stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then, slowly, she shook her head. "Alex, I can't let you do that. It's too much." "It's not too much," Alex insisted. "You deserve this, Emma. You always have." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked away, her shoulders trembling. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Alex said softly. "Just let me help you. Please." Emma nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "Okay." As they sat there in the quiet of the park, Alex felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. This was just the beginning, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the business card Alex had given her. His name was embossed in sleek silver letters, a stark contrast to the worn edges of the card. She had spent the entire night turning it over in her hands, torn between hope and fear. Could she really trust him? Could she trust herself to accept his help without losing what little pride she had left? Her daughter, Lily, stirred in her sleep, her small frame curled up under the thin blanket. Emma's heart ached as she watched her. Lily deserved so much more than this: a cramped apartment, hand-me-down clothes, and a mother who worked herself to the bone just to keep food on the table. Maybe Alex's offer was the answer she had been praying for, even if it came with its own set of complications. The next morning, Emma found herself standing in the park, her stomach in knots as she waited for Alex to arrive. When he finally appeared, his presence was both comforting and overwhelming. He looked so out of place here, in his tailored coat and polished shoes, yet his smile was warm and familiar. They sat on the bench, and Alex laid out his plan. He would cover her tuition for a degree program of her choice, help her find a part-time job that fit her schedule, and even arrange for childcare for Lily. It was more than Emma had dared to hope for, and yet the weight of his generosity felt like a heavy chain around her neck. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly, her eyes fixed on the ground. "You don't have to thank me," Alex replied. "This is about giving you a chance to rebuild your life. That's all." Emma nodded, but the guilt lingered. She had spent so long fending for herself, relying on no one but herself, that the idea of accepting help felt foreign, almost wrong. But for Lily's sake, she knew she had to try. The first few weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments. Emma enrolled in a community college, choosing a business administration program that would give her the skills she needed to secure a stable job. Alex helped her find a part-time position at a local bookstore where the hours were flexible and the work was manageable. He also arranged for a trusted babysitter to look after Lily while Emma was in class or at work. It wasn't easy. Emma often felt like she was juggling too many balls, each one threatening to slip from her grasp at any moment. There were nights when she stayed up late studying, her eyes burning from exhaustion, and mornings when she barely had the energy to get out of bed. But through it all, Alex was there, offering encouragement and support without ever making her feel like a charity case. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Emma found herself sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment, surrounded by textbooks and notes. Lily was asleep in the next room, and the silence felt heavy, suffocating. She buried her face in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. What was she doing? How could she possibly keep this up? Her phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen. It was a text from Alex. "How's it going? Need anything?" For a moment, she considered ignoring it. She didn't want him to see her like this, weak, overwhelmed, on the verge of giving up. But something inside her broke, and before she could stop herself, she typed out a reply. "I don't know if I can do this." His response came almost immediately. "You can, and you will. I believe in you." Those words, simple as they were, felt like a lifeline. Emma took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and picked up her textbook. She wasn't doing this alone anymore. She had Alex in her corner, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could succeed. As the weeks turned into months, Emma began to find her footing. Her grades improved, and she started to enjoy her classes, discovering a passion for entrepreneurship she hadn't known she had. At work, her confidence grew, and she even started making friends with her co-workers. Lily too seemed happier, her laughter filling the apartment in a way it hadn't in years. But it wasn't just her circumstances that were changing. Emma found herself opening up to Alex in ways she hadn't expected. They started meeting for coffee once a week, their conversations ranging from her classes to his work to their shared memories of the past. It was strange reconnecting with someone who had once been such a big part of her life, but it was also comforting. Alex understood her in a way no one else did, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt seen. Still, there were moments when the old doubts crept in. Would Alex always be there? Or would he eventually grow tired of helping her? Was she just another project to him, a way to ease his guilt about the life he had left behind? She tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the present and the future she was building for herself and Lily. One afternoon, as they sat in a cafe sipping coffee, Alex turned to her with a serious expression. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what comes next for you. Have you considered starting your own business?" Emma blinked, caught off guard. "My own business? I don't know. I've never thought about it." "You've got the skills," Alex said, "and the drive. I think you could do it." Emma smiled, a flicker of excitement igniting in her chest. "Maybe. I'll think about it." As they left the cafe, Emma felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she could see a future for herself, one filled with possibilities, not limitations. And she knew no matter what challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't be facing them alone. Alex sat at his desk, staring at the blueprint for his latest project. It wasn't a tech innovation or a business venture, it was something far more personal. Inspired by Emma's resilience and determination, he had decided to create a foundation aimed at helping people in situations similar to hers. The idea had been brewing in his mind for weeks, but now it was finally taking shape. He called it the Second Chance Foundation, a name that reflected its mission: to give individuals who had fallen on hard times the opportunity to rebuild their lives through education, job training, and mentorship. It was a massive undertaking, but Alex was determined to see it through. He had the resources, the connections, and now the inspiration. The first person he shared the idea with was Emma. They met at the same park where they had reconnected months ago, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet as they walked. "I want to create something that can help people like you," Alex explained, his voice filled with passion. "People who just need a chance to start over." Emma listened intently, her eyes widening as he laid out his vision. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment, processing everything he had said. "Alex, this is incredible," she said finally. "But are you sure you're ready for something like this? It's a huge responsibility." "I know," Alex admitted, "but I've spent so much of my life focused on building my own success. It's time I used that success to make a real difference. And I want you to be a part of it." Emma's breath caught. "Me? What could I possibly do?" "You've lived it," Alex said earnestly. "You know what it's like to struggle, to feel like the world is against you. And you've shown that with the right support, people can overcome even the toughest challenges. Your perspective is invaluable." Emma hesitated, her mind racing. The idea of being involved in something so big was daunting, but it also felt right. She had spent so long feeling powerless, like her life was something that happened to her rather than something she could control. This was a chance to take that power back, not just for herself, but for others. "Okay," she said finally, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I'm in." Over the next few months, Alex and Emma worked tirelessly to bring the Second Chance Foundation to life. They assembled a team of advisors, secured funding, and began reaching out to community organizations to identify potential candidates for the program. It was grueling work, but it was also deeply rewarding. Emma threw herself into the project with a passion she hadn't felt in years. She helped design the mentorship program, drawing on her own experiences to ensure it was both practical and compassionate. She also took on the role of spokesperson, sharing her story at fundraisers and events to inspire others to support the cause. But it wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, times when the sheer scale of what they were trying to achieve felt overwhelming. Emma often found herself questioning whether she was truly qualified to be part of something so important. And Alex, for all his confidence, struggled with the weight of responsibility that came with leading such a high-profile initiative. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, Emma found herself sitting in Alex's office, staring at a stack of paperwork that seemed to grow taller by the minute. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex looked up from his laptop, his expression softening. "Yes, you can. You're stronger than you think, Emma." "But what if I mess up?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if I let everyone down?" Alex leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You won't, and even if you do, that's okay. We're in this together, remember? We'll figure it out." His words were a balm to her frayed nerves, and for the first time in weeks, Emma felt a sense of calm. She wasn't alone in this. She had Alex, and together they could overcome anything. The launch of the Second Chance Foundation was a resounding success. The event was held in a grand ballroom, much like the one where Alex and Emma had first reconnected. But this time, the atmosphere was different, filled with hope and determination rather than superficial glamour. Alex took the stage, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "This foundation is about more than just giving people a second chance. It's about showing them that they matter, that their dreams are worth fighting for. And it's about reminding all of us that we have the power to make a difference, no matter where we come from or what we've been through." When it was Emma's turn to speak, she felt a surge of nerves but also a deep sense of purpose. She looked out at the sea of faces, her heart pounding as she began to share her story. "A year ago I was standing on a street corner selling flowers to make ends meet," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I had lost hope, lost faith in myself. But then, someone believed in me. Someone gave me a chance to start over, and that changed everything. She paused, her eyes finding Alex's in the crowd. "This foundation is my way of paying that forward. It's my way of saying thank you, not just to Alex, but to everyone who has ever believed in me. Because when you believe in someone, you give them the strength to believe in themselves." The room erupted in applause, and as Emma stepped off the stage, she felt a sense of accomplishment she hadn't known was possible. This was just the beginning, but it was a beginning filled with hope and possibility. As the night wore on, Alex found Emma standing by the window, gazing out at the city lights. He joined her, a quiet smile on his face. "You were amazing up there," he said. Emma turned to him, her eyes shining. "We were amazing. It's because of you, Alex. You made this happen." "No," Alex said softly. "We made this happen. Together." And in that moment, Emma realized that this was more than just a foundation. It was a testament to the power of second chances, not just for those they would help, but for the two of them as well. They had found their way back to each other, and in doing so, they had found a way to make the world a little brighter. The Second Chance Foundation quickly gained momentum, its message resonating with people from all walks of life. Donations poured in, and the team expanded to include counselors, educators, and mentors who were passionate about the cause. But for Alex and Emma, the real measure of success wasn't in the numbers, it was in the stories of the people they helped. One of the first beneficiaries was Maria, a single mother who had been working 2 jobs to support her children while dreaming of becoming a nurse. With the foundation's support, she was able to enroll in a nursing program and secure reliable childcare for her kids. When she graduated at the top of her class, she sent Emma a heartfelt letter, thanking her for giving her the chance to pursue her dreams. Then there was James, a former construction worker, who had lost his job after an injury left him unable to perform manual labor. The foundation provided him with training in IT, and within a year, he had landed a stable job at a tech company. His story was featured in a local newspaper, bringing even more attention to the foundation's work. Each success story filled Emma with a sense of pride and purpose, but it also brought its own set of challenges. The foundation's rapid growth meant long hours and endless responsibilities. Emma often found herself juggling her own studies, her role at the foundation, and her responsibilities as a mother. There were nights when she collapsed into bed, exhausted but unable to sleep, her mind racing with everything that still needed to be done. Alex, too, felt the weight of their mission. Balancing the foundation with his demanding career was no easy feat, and he often found himself stretched thin. But whenever he felt overwhelmed, he would think of Emma. Her determination, her resilience, her unwavering belief in what they were doing. She had become his anchor, just as she had been all those years ago. Their partnership deepened as they worked side by side, their shared history giving them a unique understanding of each other. They had become a team, not just in the foundation, but in life. And yet, there were moments when the lines between their professional and personal relationship blurred, leaving them both uncertain about where they stood. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Emma found herself sitting in Alex's office, a cup of tea in her hands. The room was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the city outside. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing enough?" Emma asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. Alex looked up from his laptop, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there are so many people out there who need help. Are we really making a difference, or are we just scratching the surface?" Alex leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "We're making a difference, Emma. Maybe we can't help everyone, but we're changing lives, that's what matters." Emma nodded, but the doubt lingered in her eyes. "Sometimes it feels like no matter how much we do, it's never enough." Alex stood and walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You can't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're doing more than most people ever will, and you're inspiring others to do the same. That's how change happens, one step at a time." His words were a comfort, but they also stirred something deeper in Emma. She looked up at him, her eyes searching his. "Why are you doing this, Alex?" "Really?" Alex hesitated, his gaze softening. "Because of you, Emma. You showed me that success isn't just about what you achieve for yourself. It's about what you do for others. You've always been my inspiration." Emma felt a lump form in her throat, her heart swelling with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she admitted quietly. Alex smiled, his hand gently squeezing her shoulder. "You'll never have to find out." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken feelings. But before either of them could say more, the sound of Emma's phone ringing broke the spell. She glanced at the screen and sighed. "It's Lily's school. I should take this." Alex nodded, stepping back as Emma answered the call. As she spoke, he couldn't help but feel a pang of longing. They had come so far, both individually and together, but there was still so much left unsaid. The foundation continued to thrive, its impact reaching further than Alex and Emma had ever imagined. They received invitations to speak at conferences, and their work was featured in national media. But with the spotlight came new challenges: skepticism from critics, pressure to meet growing expectations, and the constant struggle to stay true to their mission. One particularly difficult day, after a contentious meeting with a group of donors, Emma found herself sitting on the steps of the foundation's headquarters, her head in her hands. Alex joined her, sitting down beside her in silence. "Tough day?" he asked after a while. Emma let out a bitter laugh. "That's an understatement." Alex nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. But we're in it together, remember?" Emma turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Alex. You've been my rock through all of this." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. "And you've been mine." As they sat there, the city bustling around them, Emma realized that this was what truly mattered. Not the accolades or the recognition, but the connection they had built, the lives they had touched, and the hope they had given to so many. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but as long as they had each other, Emma knew they could face anything. The Second Chance Foundation's annual gala was the most anticipated event of the year. The ballroom was filled with donors, beneficiaries and supporters, all gathered to celebrate the foundation's achievements. But for Alex and Emma, the night held a deeper significance. It was a culmination of everything they had worked for, a testament to the power of second chances. As Alex stood at the podium preparing to deliver his speech, he felt a surge of emotion. He looked out at the crowd, his eyes landing on Emma, who stood at the back of the room, her smile radiant. She had come so far, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude. "Good evening, everyone," Alex began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tonight, we celebrate not just the success of the Second Chance Foundation, but the incredible people who have made it possible. This foundation was born out of a belief that everyone deserves a second chance, no matter where they come from or what they've been through. And over the past year, we've seen that belief come to life in ways we never imagined." He paused, his gaze returning to Emma. "But this foundation isn't just about giving people a second chance. It's about showing them that they matter, that their dreams are worth fighting for. And it's about reminding all of us that we have the power to make a difference, no matter where we come from or what we've been through." The room erupted in applause, and as Alex stepped down from the podium, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known was possible. But the night wasn't over yet. Emma took the stage next, her heart pounding as she looked out at the sea of faces. She had come a long way from the woman selling flowers on the street corner, and tonight she was ready to share her story with the world. "A little over a year ago, I was standing on a street corner, selling flowers to make ends meet," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I had lost hope, lost faith in myself. But then, someone believed in me. Someone gave me a chance to start over, and that changed everything." She paused, her eyes finding Alex's in the crowd. "This foundation is my way of paying that forward. It's my way of saying thank you, not just to Alex, but to everyone who has ever believed in me. Because when you believe in someone, you give them the strength to believe in themselves." The room was silent, hanging on her every word. Emma took a deep breath, her voice trembling with emotion. "But this journey hasn't just been about helping others. It's been about finding myself, about rediscovering the dreams I thought I had lost. And it's been about realizing that no matter how far you fall, it's never too late to rise again." As she finished her speech, the room erupted in applause, the sound echoing in her ears. She stepped down from the stage, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. Alex was waiting for her, his eyes filled with admiration. "You were amazing," he said, his voice soft but filled with emotion. Emma smiled, her eyes shining. "We were amazing. It's because of you, Alex. You made this happen." "No," Alex said gently. "We made this happen. Together." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, tears, and heartfelt conversations. But as the night drew to a close, Alex and Emma found themselves standing on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below them. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Emma said, her voice filled with wonder. Alex nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "It's been a long journey, but it's been worth it. Every step of the way." Emma turned to him, her heart pounding. "Alex, there's something I need to say." He looked at her, his expression softening. "What is it?" Emma took a deep breath, her eyes searching his. "I don't know where I'd be without you. You've given me so much. Not just a second chance, but a reason to believe in myself again. And I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." Alex's breath caught, his heart swelling with emotion. "Emma, you've always been a part of my life, even when we were apart. And now that we're together again, I don't ever want to let you go." The words hung between them, charged with unspoken feelings. And then, without another word, Alex reached for her, pulling her into a gentle embrace. Emma melted into his arms, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. As they stood there, the city lights shimmering around them, Emma realized that this was what truly mattered, not the success or the recognition, but the connection they had built, the love they had found, and the hope they had given to so many. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but as long as they had each other, Emma knew they could face anything. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that second chances are possible. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of hope, resilience, and the power of human connection. Together, we can spread kindness and make the world a brighter place, one story at a time.